Buddy, it's me, Curtis, and I have I what's this big blank box doing next to me here? It's because I set up a second camera, but I forgot that I don't want it there right now. Because I'll get to that in a little bit. I have a new box. It has an Epic collection in it, and I bet you all want to see what's inside it, right? Which Epic collection is coming out next? And I forgot to check the date on this one, so let me just do that pretty quickly. While we're waiting for a few more people to join the stream, how's your evening going? You having a good evening? It's nice and sunny over here in Vancouver. Let's see. This is for July the 2nd. July the 2nd. Well, I see no reason why we should wait any longer. Let's just open it right up. Then I'm going to talk a little bit afterwards about a question that came up in the Epic Collection group about paper stock. Not that I'm a paper stock expert or anything, but I thought that maybe it'd be interesting to talk about it a little bit. Stormy here, but makes for good reading weather. You're right. That is good reading weather. Okay. Our epic collection for today is the Hawkeye Modern Era Epic Collection. This is the very first volume. Oh, from Mexico. Nice. In your 3 a.m. Partworks comics reader. Hawkeye Epic Collection, Modern Era Epic Collection. This is volume 1 with Hawkeye on the spine. And no little blurb at the top this time. Actually, that's because the moderns put it down here, I think. Hawkeye is back. This is a collection that comes right after Hawkeye Volume 4 of the classic Marvel Epic Collections, which is coming out soon. It's not out yet. But this one starts in 2009 and goes to 2011. And let me see here. It includes New Avengers, The Reunion 1 to 4, Hawkeye and Mockingbird 1 to 6, Widowmaker numbers 1 to 4, Hawkeye Blind Spot numbers 1 to 4, and the Hawkeye and Mockingbird sketchbook and material from Dark Reign, New Nation, and Enter the Heroic Age. So this takes place after the events that happened to Hawkeye in New Avengers, in the beginning of the New Avengers run by Brian Michael Bendis, because he undergoes a little bit of an identity crisis at that point, and this has him coming back, called the Reunion, because I think he gets reunited with Mockingbird. As you can tell, Mockingbird is in a lot. There's a lot of miniseries with him and Mockingbird. Up until this point, she is. I don't know if this is a spoiler or not. She's not alive. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler. She'd been dead for a very, very long time, and so having her come back was a pretty big deal. I guess there's no way around telling that story with showing any of these pictures without spoiling that. Um, But yeah, so some pretty cool stuff here. This is the cover to New Avengers: The Reunion #1. The title's down there in the bottom, along with the title of the issue called The Lady Vanishes. I am so unfamiliar. This is the sweet spot in my comic book history where I wasn't reading any comics from about 2009 to 2011 or so, except for I think Ultimate Spider-Man. Was that still running? I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't. But or yeah, I think maybe it was. So all of this stuff is new, but uh, it's nice to be introduced to this stuff through the Epic collections. Now, from what I understand, this stuff was collected in a different trade paperback, and they kind of reskinned it. I don't know if it's the entire contents. Oh, here's a comment. Says, already have the Avenging Archer thick trade and Fraction complete collection, so skipping modern Hawkeye, all in for the rest of the classic run. My question is, will modern Hawkeye only feature Clint Barton, or will it go to the Kate Bishop era? Because that Matt Fraction era, or the Matt Fraction story of Hawkeye is split pretty 50-50 between adventures with Clint Barton and adventures with Kate Bishop. They kind of intersect a little bit. So they could just continue her story from there. This comic is very blue. A lot of it's taking place at night, and everything has a very big blue tone to it. You can That seems to be a running thing throughout all of this. Um, oh, she's going back to Nevada. I wonder, this character is obviously not the same character as the one who did her wrong in the past, so I wonder if they're gonna kind of revisit that story. Someone who's read this already will know the answer to that question. Do you know at which point Mockingbird was kidnapped or substituted by the Skrulls? Sorry for the question. I actually don't know. I just read pardon me, Secret Invasion, because I'm reading through the Iron Man Modern Era Epic Collection that's coming out, and that story takes place kind of right in the middle there. And she does come back, but the one that came back, I believe, was a scroll, and they never really conclude that story. So I don't know the answer to that question. That's a nice splash page there. Big explosion. Very, very cool. Yeah, some cool looking stuff here. Like to see that Black Widow's here. I guess that's the one called Widowmaker. It all looks great. It's like a cross between classic and modern with this style of art. It's not too it retains kind of a classic feel in its inking and such. Has some modern coloring that's not too obnoxious, like early 90s or like the late 90s. Um, yeah, I think this will be a lot of fun to read. There's a cool wraparound gatefold cover or whatever. Lots of sketchbook images here as bonus features. Okay, here's the answer to your questions. The Skrulls, alien shapeshifters had replaced me with a mentally and physically identical duplicate as part of their secret invasion of the copy apparently believed she was the real thing and died saving Clint, while I spent years on a Skrull planet as a prisoner and then a fugitive and then a prisoner once again. Doesn't actually say when that is, but that might actually be told in this book somewhere else, or someone in the comments can help me out here. At what age did you get introduced to comics? For me, it was around 10 years old. Yeah, it was around 10 years old for me too. Actually, it was 8 years old. I got some of my first comic books as birthday presents. Web of Spider-Man in 1989. That's when I was first introduced. I mean, that's such a subjective term. I was first introduced to superhero comics at the age of 8, but I'd already been reading like Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes and that kind of stuff. So a lot of that is that like that's my introduction to comics. And then superheroes was when I was 8. Um, but uh, man, this is so cool. I'm looking forward to reading this one. This is going to be great. Double dipped Widowmaker. There's a similar thick trade with the various Black Widow minis from around the same time. A similar situation to Hawkeye, already well covered for Modern Widow. Yes, okay. There you go. Well, there you go. Yeah, we already have a Black Widow Modern Era Epic Collection, and this will be a nice companion to that. Um, this one's, like I said, coming the first week of July. And I had an interesting question come up in the Facebook group the other day, and I started typing up my answer, but it just got really long. It was a really long answer. So I was like, it's kind of easier to just talk about it. It's about the paper stock because someone was looking at the GI Joe Kickstarter that just started with Skybound. Right, Skybound has the new license to publish, to publish GI Joe comics, and they are kickstarting a big campaign that's already over $1 million to release 4 compendium size volumes of all of the Marvel GI Joe comics, everything that Marvel did, not just the main series, but the special missions and the mini series and all that kind of stuff in 4 compendiums. And they had already announced that these compendiums were hitting the retail market as soft covers, and they were going to be newsprint, which is kind of an odd choice. And people are like, well, what does that mean? What's the quality going to be like? And in the Kickstarter, it says that these hardcovers are not going to be newsprint. They're going to be an actual nice kind of uncoated um, white paper stock, like regular, like Epic collections. So what's the difference? Is newsprint bad? Um, and the answer is, I mean, yes and no. It really depends. Um, the newsprint that they're going to use in comics for books is not the same newsprint that they use to actually print newspapers. There's better newsprint paper. There's like different tiers of newsprint. And if you have any DC comic trade paperbacks already, I'm pretty sure you already have some examples of books that have newsprint in it. I've got a few here. This one is newsprint. These are what's the year on this one? 2003. This book came out in 2003. These multiple Crisis on Multiple Earths trades. Um, Invasion, if you have this one. This is from 2008, even newer. The old Death in the Family. These are all ones with this logo on the side. This one is newsprint as well. And this one is one of the newer ones. Let's see, what year is this one? 2012. They're still using newsprint then. They don't much anymore, but yeah, any of these ones. And if you look at it, like the question was, well, is the technology better so that when it prints, that you're not going to get all weird bleeding and how muddy things look, like in newspapers, like the ink comes off on your fingertips. Of course, we know the essentials, they're printed with newsprint as well. It's a different type of newsprint, I believe. But and then the other question is it just gonna fade? Is it gonna deteriorate? Um, it's not going to deteriorate, not like old newsprint. And even new newsprint is far better than old newsprint, like newspapers. The stuff that they do with newspapers now is not gonna fall apart like old newspapers. And if you think about it, there are examples of old newspapers that are 120 years old. Like that stuff does still last. Maybe it becomes a little discolored and starts to smell funny, but doesn't doesn't fall apart easily. Um, so I brought a second camera because I did want to show what some of this newsprint looks like when it's printed. Like because people were asking, well, what's the color like? So let's see here. How do I make this bigger? This is Invasion. And you can see that the printing quality is really, really nice. It's still like the lines are nice and sharp. Yes, it does bleed a little bit and absorb into the paper. Um, oh, my camera stalled, but not much. Like the quality's there. Now you can see a little bit of bleed, oops, in the fingers, like coming out of the fingers there, but that's a fault of the restoration process, not the printing process. Um, yeah, this camera's it's going off of Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit fuzzy. But yeah, it still looks great. The colors are nice and vibrant. In fact, I would say that one of my beefs about modern reprints is that they use, 100% pure yellow when doing the yellows here because that's what they used in the original comics. The newsprint absorbs some of that color, so it doesn't look as glaring as on the slick white paper. So it kind of looks a little bit even nicer. But is it going to brown? You know, Not to a noticeable amount. I mean, it's off-white. All of this paper is not totally white. You can see that there is some around the edge. a little bit of darkening, but the white paper does that too. If you remember the Epic collections, those original Epic collections that came out right at the very beginning, like these two Iron Mans, this paper's yellowing as well. Um, I should have brought up another example of a really white book, but if you look at these, it's yellow as well. So um, the DC reference helps a lot. I have some new Teen Titans trades, and I'm pretty sure it is newsprint. You can feel it in if you if you feel the pages with your fingers, you can feel how coarse it is. You can feel the roughness of it. It's not slick like the paper, Epic Collection paper. That's newsprint, and it's not bad. It's not going to fall apart or tear or whatever. Yeah, you can find a bunch of yellow ones at the stores. Exactly. And that's just the nature of paper. Now you can put them in bags and prevent them from touching air because it's the air that oxidizes it. But overall, all paper is going to yellow over time. That's just a fact of life. Some will do it faster than others. And if you're starting off with newsprint, which is already an off-white color, then maybe it's not as noticeable. There you go. David says the new Teen Titans trade number 4 is what he has from 2016, and it looks good, and it smells more like a comic too. So, um, why is would Skybound use newsprint? Probably because it's cheaper. Um, newsprint is a cheaper paper, and if they're printing books that are going to be 1,200 pages, then yeah, you might need something that's going to be a lot cheaper to offset costs and keep your cost of the price point of the book down, which I'm sure everybody would appreciate. However, it is a thicker paper as well. So, whereas the Epic collections, this is a very thin stock. Newsprint, just generally speaking, is pulpier, so it's thicker, and that means those books are going to be pretty fat. If you think about it, this showcase, let me see here. This showcase is 545 pages. 545 pages. This Epic collection is 500 pages. This one's a little smaller. Let's see if we can. How big is this one here? This one's 500 pages as well. So there's only a 40-page difference in these two books, but the enemy ace is way, way bigger. Um, and that's because it's newsprint. That's because it's a bulkier paper. And so these compendiums that are 800 pages, they're going to be like, yeah, they're going to be like this thicker than this. It's going to be a thick, thick book. And then the hardcovers that are regular paper are just going to have a much thinner spine because it's the thinner paper. Very interesting. Light will turn into that real quick. Yeah, light and air are the worst enemies of paper. If you kept things hermetically sealed in the dark, then it will stay white for forever. But who does that? Yep. Well, can't wait to get the first two DC compact comics, Watchmen and Batman Court of Owls. You heard about these compact comics? They're like smaller trim size. Uh, they're they're doing that to I think for a number of reasons. One is that if you have a smaller trim size, you can because you know how books are made is that you have huge sheets of paper and you print like 8 pages onto one big sheet of paper, and then you cut them all up and you assemble your book. If you have a smaller trim size, then you can fit like 12 pages per one sheet. So it costs you fewer sheets of paper. So it's going to just be cheaper to produce, and then they can keep the price point down. The other reason I think they want to do these compact comics is because they can fit in places like school libraries, university libraries. If they want to teach graphic novel courses or have graphic novels in English classes, they can keep those books around the same size as all of the other books that they'll be studying. Um, and libraries much prefer the smaller size. Like, you know how the Scholastic Bone books are smaller size? Is going to be a similar one to that, I think. My only question is, some of those older comics have a lot of words. I mean, people don't seem to have a problem with the Mighty Marvel Masterworks, especially that Silver Age stuff, really wordy. Watchmen is a really wordy comic, um, but I think that novels are just generally that size, and they're all words, so they should be fine. I like the idea. I like the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. There you go, Film Watcher 96. That's great. Digest size line of DC books in France has been really popular. A lot of titles covered over there. Yeah, and I think that'll be just fine. There are some people who want all of their art oversized, like Omnis, and then there are others who would prefer to be able to just stick it in their backpack and take it on the bus or whatever, and that suits that one as well. And in the case of Watchmen, that's a book that should be available in any size in any format for everybody who wants to own a copy because it's an important comic. It's a good one. I hope the binding on those GI Joe Kickstarter books is real good and not just glue. I think that the soft covers will be glue, I'm sure, because they're soft cover. But I believe that the Kickstarter specifically said that it's going to be sewn binding on those hardcovers. So that's my guess. You'll have to double check that Kickstarter to uh, to make sure I'm right. Anyway, like I said, I'm not an expert on paper stock. I just that's just my thoughts on stuff that I've picked up over time and on the books that I have worked on. Um, an interesting book I have here that has newsprint in it is called Alex Sinner. Have you seen this book? So this is a French comic um, done by the Euro Comics brand, which is the Library of American Comics. They branched out and did a few Euro comics, and this is a fat book. And it's also on newsprint. It's the same kind of newsprint. Actually, it even feels a little bit grittier. But I was asking Dean Mullaney, who was the publisher, why did you choose to do this book on newsprint rather than just regular standard paper? Um, and he said that the reason he wanted it is because this is a very gritty book, right? It's very, very gritty, very dirty, and he wanted the paper stock to reflect that. He wanted something that when you were holding and turning pages, it felt gritty as well. And so that's why he chose newsprint here, and he specifically chose a good quality newsprint that's not going to go bad. It's not going to, it's acid free and everything like that. Uh, so there you go. If you haven't checked this book out, it's so good. It's unlike um, it's unlike any other detective comic because the main character has such a different way of approaching things and a different take on life. And oftentimes the book isn't even about the cases, it's about just nothing or existentialism or whatever. It's a hard book to kind of describe, but it's a book about a PI, a detective, and yeah, I think you should check it out. That's my little pitch for the day. If you haven't already, there's 2 volumes. It's two thick volumes like this. Alex Sinner. There you go. Um, so let's see here. Any other comments? How's your day going? My day's going really well, thanks. I'm reading Kevin Smith's Guardian Devil run. Yeah, that was an interesting comic. Very big game changer for Daredevil, in the terms of just the direction of his character and the direction of the type of stories that they were going to tell. It was a neat move. Here in Mexico, they're publishing the digest pocket books for Marvel and DC, but some prices are too high, almost as a trade paperback or hardcover. That's weird. I think I don't know what the price point is going to be of the ones that they're doing here, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I was sold on the GI Joe newsprint until you pointed out how thick they'll be. Now I'll have to reassess. They are going to take up a lot of shelf space, and you can see from the pictures in in the Kickstarter, the GI Joe Kickstarter, that those hardcovers are going to be super thick anyway, just with standard paper. So we'll have to see how thick they get. This one, let's see how many pages this is. This is this one is only 400 pages. 400 pages. This is how bulky this paper is. 400 pages versus a 500 page um, Epic collection. That's quite a difference, isn't it? Quite a difference in thickness. 500 pages, thin paper stock, 400 pages, bulky newsprint. So yeah, that gives you a little feel for it there. Hey, hi Jeff, my friend Jeff. I just got Terry and the Pirates Volume 7, another outstanding edition, and congrats on finishing For Better For Worse. That's right. Terry and the Pirates Volume 7 is out. And in fact, Clover Press is selling volume 8 and 9 in advance if you want all three of them at the same time. Otherwise, they'll be released throughout the year. Terry and the Pirates, fantastic newspaper comic strip from the 1930s and 1940s. One of the best adventure comics of all time. And I'm not joking, it is so good. Everybody has to check that one out. And thanks for the congrats on finishing For Better For Worse. Jeff knows that I'm the editor of this I don't have any with me. I moved them all off my desk because I'm finished with that project now. But yeah, 9 volumes of For Better For Worse, another newspaper comic strip, one of my favorites, and I'm done. I finished. I handed in the 9th volume, the last volume, and it's at the printer. It should be coming out in I think November because we were a little late on our deadline, so it got pushed a little bit. Nomar says, "When do you think the original cable series will be collected in Epics?" Um, I can't really give you a time frame on that. I have no idea, but I imagine that, especially if they make progress on X Force and finish off that title, I bet Cable would follow soon after, if not before. The Nightwing Compendium arrived today. Gonna read Underworld Unleashed first as a lead-in for Blockbuster's setup. That's a good idea. Yeah, that one's a nice thick one as well. Hey, those compendiums are just huge. When they come out, will you be comparing the differences between the Spider-Man Clone Saga Epic and Complete collections? Sure, I can do that. I can tell you already that the only major difference is that they took one story arc from the first volume of the Complete Epic, the old editions, because it was actually published later, and in my opinion, should be read later because reading it means assumes that you have the foreknowledge of the actual Clone Saga. It's the Peter Park, the Lost Years, Peter Parker, the Lost Years, and so by removing that uh, story from the first volume, it means that they had to take the first story arc from volume two and put it in the first book, and so everything's just shifted down a little bit. But otherwise, pretty much the same. Um, the Spider-Man Unlimited issues have all of the backups in the Epic collections, and they don't have all of the backups in the original editions. Also, they've corrected a lot of the issues with the moire patterns, with the when the dots or the ketones get a little distorted, and um, the dots sort of blend together and create a little polka dot illusion. The old editions have that problem, and the new editions they have some better scans or they have higher quality something or other, so they've fixed that problem. Those are the ones off the top of my head, the changes, but we should be getting a new Clone Saga volume at the end of this year, coming up in November. And so when I get that volume, I will do a comparison. I will make sure that I have my other copy on hand so that we can take a look. Yeah. So the GI Joe will be the same as the Spawn Compendium, right? 50 issues by book, same as the Milestones books that will happen to Transformers next year. I don't know if it's the same as the Spawn Compendium because that's a different company, right? Because GI Joe is Skybound and they play by their own rules or they make their own decisions. But they'll be around roughly around that size, I think. We'll see. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. That was my live stream for the day. If you didn't check it out already or see the beginning of this live stream, I have a Hawkeye Modern Era Epic Collection. It's called The Reunion, coming out the first Tuesday or first Wednesday in July. And it has a whole bunch of Hawkeye miniseries. Still Clint Barton. We haven't moved into the Kate Bishop era yet. And what is the next Modern Era Epic Collection coming out? It'll say on the back cover. Thor. That's the next one. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching the live stream. I hope you have a great evening. And for those of you who are up late, you should go to bed. And that's it for me. Thanks everyone. See you later.